Hello and welcome to the debate. You've tuned into Press TV, and I'm Marcia Hashmi. Thanks so much for being with us. Well, has Ankara gotten tired of supporting terrorists in the region? Turkey has been playing a very active role in supporting terrorists in Syria, especially. However, now Turkey has been bombing alleged terrorist positions inside of Syria and Iraq. But why would the Turks do this without the coordination of the sovereign governments in both these nations? And why would Turkey do an about-face on a position that it has been holding for years now? Stay with us as we take a look at this latest turnaround from Ankara. I'd like to welcome my guest to the program out of London, journalist and political analyst Hafsa Kara Mustafa. And out of Los Angeles, journalist and political commentator Philip and Celine. Thank you both for being with us. Well, let's start this actually in L.A. And has Turkey done an about-face in its support for terrorist groups such as al-Nusra and ISIL, in your perspective?
I think some of what was said earlier is justified. Turkey is mainly concerned, I think, still with the Kurdish militias taking a lot of strength and threatening its southern border. I think the focus on ISIS might be cosmetic, but I find it very rich that Iran would criticize Turkey for supporting terrorist groups while Iran is supporting Hezbollah and has been violating Syrian and Lebanese sovereignty, if you include Lebanon, for decades now.
Okay, Ms. Kara Mustafa, your take now in general, when we look at this change, or what appears to be a change, is it cosmetic? Is it real? And if you'd like to comment on what our guest has said, feel free to do so.
Well, I've missed part of what he said due to sound problems, but I can't imagine that we could compare the actions of ISIS to support for Hezbollah in Iran. At risk of repeating myself on this program, Hezbollah was created in reaction to the illegal criminal occupation of South Lebanon by Israel, and was therefore a perfectly legal means for the people of South Lebanon to resist illegal occupation. They benefited from support of Iran, and I think that was very much welcomed by the population of Lebanon and by all freedom-loving countries, because of course Israel violated international law by illegally occupying the sovereign state of Lebanon. ISIS, on the other hand, is a vicious terrorist organization that targets minorities, that slaughters civilians, that destroys heritage of the population and the people of the Middle East. So I can't imagine that the two entities can in any way, shape or form be comparable. Now, what we've seen today in Turkey, or rather in the past few days in Turkey, is basically chicken coming home to roost for Turkey. Turkey has been supporting tacitly all the opposition groups in Syria in a bid to see Bashar al-Assad ousted from his post. But of course, when you ally with vicious criminal organizations, things will come back to bite you. The Americans supported and funded al-Qaeda, and this is a vicious game we've been seeing for many decades now, whereby certain governments, NATO governments basically, support terrorist organizations and then complain when these organizations come through their borders.
What about that? Mr. Ansalinov, our guest, said in London, she sees it basically what's happening with Turkey right now is the chickens coming home to roost. How do you see it?
I think the word legal and the word terrorist probably have a different meaning in London these days, because what I heard is a bit farcical. Whatever has been said about ISIS, and they're a horrific, evil group, can be equally said about Hezbollah. And the same way Hezbollah started because of a reaction to Israel's invasion of Lebanon to fight off terrorists from the PLO, ISIS was created as a response to Assad waging near genocide on the Sunnis in Syria with the help of Iran. So
Mr.
those chickens
Assaline,
will
have you
also come home to
seen,
roost.
since you have brought up this point, have you seen Hezbollah committing terrorist acts, beheading people, tearing out the hearts of people? Just tell me, as far as what's your definition? What's your definition of a resistance group and a terrorist group, please?
So I don't think what matters is what is on YouTube. I think what matters is the methodology and aims of a group. A terrorist group is some group that target, I'm having audio problem, sorry. A terrorist group is a group that targets civilians for political reasons. That's the generally accepted definition, and that is what encapsulate not only Hezbollah, but a bunch of other groups that Iran is supporting, including Hamas, including Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and other groups. So that's what a terrorist group is. Resistance has nothing to do with whether one is a terrorist or not. Terrorism is a method.
And so have you seen Turkey? And so do you feel that Ankara has supported terrorism during this period of time? That we have seen actually the Turks allow weapons to cross from Turkey and going into Syria, and also supporting these groups that, according to you, it may be just you two, but there's definitely been a lot of carnage on the ground in Syria and in
there's
Iraq.
No doubt. Absolutely. ISIS is it's an evil terrorist group, and it's been tacitly supported by Turkey for a long time. The position might be changing now because Turkey is threatened. But Iran has equally been supporting terrorist groups in Syria, and the groups allied with Assad have killed a lot more people. They're not as vicious on YouTube.
What I mean, I would really love to get into this as a subject, but I'm trying to keep us on track of the subject at hand. Why do you think that Ankara supported these terrorist groups to begin with, when actually Ankara was supposed to be a secular type of government, but in the last few years have taken more of an extreme turn? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, Iran has made sectarianism its foreign policy, and
the discussion
Syria is up for grabs now.
The discussion is Turkey. Hopefully we will get you. We will get you here when we're discussing Iran itself.
I'm getting to your question. I'm going to answer your question. But that is the answer. Turkey is supporting a terrorist group to oust Assad, while Iran is supporting a counter-terrorist group to keep Assad in power. That's why. It's pretty simple.
All right. Ms. Karat Mustafa, your take on what our guest in Los Angeles has said.
I mean, this is really typical Israeli distraction. We're talking today about an issue that has affected both Syria and ISIL in Turkey, and all of a sudden it's all about what's happening in regards to Iran. Iran is completely disconnected from the issue at hand today, and I'm not sure why we're trying to constantly refer to what Iran is doing. Coming back to the definition of terrorism, I would have to agree with my co-panelist when he says that it is about targeting civilians, which pretty much points to what Israel was doing very much last summer when it blew up UN compounds, destroyed hospitals, and gunned down small children playing football on a beach in Gaza. I think by that definition we can both agree that Israel really is very much a terrorist state, and I'm not sure, and I have no evidence so far, that Iran has ever actually targeted children playing football on a beach, or decapitated anyone, or blew up UN compounds. Now, in regard to what is happening in Syria, we have a case of a government that has, the Turkish government that has for the past 4 years endeavored to encourage any possible group to actually push for the ouster of the legitimate government of Syria. It has failed because Assad remains in power. In fact, Assad remains in control of good swathes of Syria, despite international coalition actually forcing and working very hard to actually remove his government and actually enforce these terrorist organizations to take over Syria. Fortunately, it has failed. Of course, we know that Israel, according to Defense Minister Moshe Alon, is actually aiding ISIS. We know that they have a tacit agreement whereby they don't approach Israeli borders, assuming there are such things as Israeli borders, but there is a tacit agreement between the government of Israel and the ISIS terrorist organization, which basically enforces anything that targets Syria, Syrian infrastructure, and Syrian civilians. But again, I think I would appreciate that we kept on track in regards to the topic at hand today, which is Turkey and ISIS, and actually leave Iran out of this debate.
Okay, stay with me, both of my guests. We're going to cross over to Facebook wall and see what some of our viewers have been saying about this subject.
Ankara has been looking for an opportunity to fight Assad. I hope it's not a strategic move. Recep Tayyip Erdogan needs to help Bashar al-Assad and Iran to remove this ISIS cancer. No change in policies. Turkey bombed Kurdish YPG positions, not ISIL's. Remove Assad, the problem will be solved. Help Assad to remove ISIL cancer in Syria. What about the ISIL training camps in Turkey? Erdogan, don't you think they should be bombarded too? Turkey never supported ISIL, only the opposition. You lied, Press TV. Turkey plays double standards with regards to Syria. I think this is another plan of the Turkey Zionist lobby to destroy the Syrian government. ISIL was created by the West with tacit support from Turkey. Now ISIL has become a monster, which is a threat to those who helped create them.
Well, Mr. Öcalan, you've heard some of our comments on Facebook today. What about the comment that basically says that actually what Turkey is doing, they feel that perhaps it's a ploy, that in actuality, instead of wanting to bomb ISIL, that it's trying to do something even more against the Syrian government, which it has been trying to overthrow for years now. Your take, sir?
It's definitely trying to overthrow this government, and I find it to be a theater of the absurd to hear my co-panelist on the one hand try to pull people's heartstrings by lying about children on beaches in Israel, targeting supposedly, and on the other hand, in the same breath, with no shame, saying that Assad is the legitimate leader of Syria. What made him legitimate? Mass murder supported by Iran? This is why Turkey is supporting terrorist groups, because the Sunni people of Syria have risen up, and they've been met by massacres supported by Iran and Hezbollah. And so Turkey chose the unfortunate means of supporting another evil terrorist group to fight back. But it seems like the words legitimate, targeting, etc. mean nothing on this show. The co-panelist is talking like sorry, with respect, but like a 14-year-old Chomskyite. We can't have a serious discussion like this.
Ms. Kara Mustafa, your take, ma'am, we seem to have this continual comparison now to this terrorist group ISIL that's wreaking havoc all over the world right now. And Hezbollah, though the subject is Turkey itself, it seems that we're continually coming back to this point.
Well, I think my co-panelist is pretty much used to being on Fox News and actually accustomed to the morons who gobble up the kind of Zionist propaganda that is spoon-fed to morons such as himself. I think the reality, the 4 children, the Bakr brothers who were gunned down on a beach in Palestine is not a lie. It's actually been recorded by Western journalists, and I think anyone denying it is pretty despicable. I think it's pretty much on a par with Holocaust denial, but of course that would be considered wrong. But of course denying the mass murder of Palestinian children is somewhat acceptable. Well, this is not Fox News, mister. This is Press TV, and on Press TV people are well informed. Now going back to the issue, we're constantly coming back to a distraction with Iran, because obviously it's easy always to blame Iran, when in fact we know for a fact that ISIS has been benefiting and been funded and been supported, and its fighters have actually benefited from medical aid from the terrorist state of Israel. So again, I really can't imagine why we're bringing constantly Iran into this equation.
So Ms. Kara Mustafa, let me just jump in here. Ms. Kara Mustafa.
Sorry, just one thought. Just the legitimacy of Assad. Please note that Syria is 80% Sunni, and therefore the army, which reflects the composition of the country, is therefore made up of 80% of Sunni fighters. And the legitimate Syrian army, which is 80% Sunni, is actually siding with Bashar al-Assad. So I think that pretty much gives it legitimacy, regardless of what anyone else outside Syria thinks. I think it's what Syrians are thinking, and the fact that the Syrian population continues to back their president and actually makes sure that Assad is the legitimate president of Syria.
All right, stay with me, Ms. Kara Mustafa and Mr. Öcalan, because I want to get back to the topic at hand, which is Turkey itself. I want to look at right now, Mr. Öcalan, with the situation of Turkey. Do you think this is actually backtracking, because many say that actually, as our other guest said, it's the roosters coming home, actually, the chickens coming home to roost, or is it something else? Others have said that basically it is a ploy. It is another way to actually try to overthrow again that Syrian government and also continue to create havoc in the region. How do you see it?
Well, the first part, getting rid of the Assad government, I don't think Turkey or anybody else is trying to hide their intentions. Absolutely, they probably have some deal with the Americans to set up a buffer zone which will allow Turkey to control the Kurdish militias and also probably weaken the Assad government. But again, these absurd statements that the Sunnis support Assad, complaining about 4 children that were tragically killed by accident on a beach and ignoring 200,000 Syrians killed, saying that Iran is irrelevant in Syria. This is insulting everybody watching you. It's insulting you and it's insulting me. There is a humanitarian disaster
if we're going to get in statistics,
Iran.
I don't think it was 3 or 4 kids on the beach, but thousands of civilians that were killed in Israel. But this is not the topic at hand. Back to the situation. Where does it go from here with this situation, Ms. Kara Mustafa, and dealing with the Turkish situation? Do you think that we're going to see an actual change of policy inside of Turkey, or, as we have seen today, growing demonstrations taking place inside of the country and people complaining about the increased acts of terrorism inside of Turkey, that the reason for this is actually because of the Turkish governments and their decisions?
Well, the Turkish government is going to have to pretend at least to do something in regard to its local population, which has been shocked by the scale of this attack. But of course, ironically, this attack has actually targeted the Kurdish area, and that pretty much is a bit of an issue for the Erdogan government because, of course, they're separatist groups, and the Turkish government would be actually happy to see ISIL continue to attack them. I think that the duplicitous policies of Erdogan over the past 4 years are actually biting, but of course, I think he's managed somehow to turn the situation to his advantage, whereby he is looking as if he's doing something, but of course he's not doing that much, because now he's offered a launching pad for foreign entities to attack inside Syria from Turkish ground. Just a small detail, it's not just 4 children, it was actually 541 according to UN records. 541 Palestinian children killed by Israeli defense forces.
And Mr. Asalin, how do you see the situation in Turkey? Do you see it deteriorating, or do you see actually the initiative to continue to support havoc in the area continuing?
So it's the characterization as supporting havoc. There's a big problem in Turkey now. Terrorism is increasing both from the PKK and from ISIS, who's starting to threaten Turkey itself. And yet, this is not in a vacuum. Erdogan has been weak, and I will be the last person ever to defend him. But this is not in a vacuum. You talk about 541 children killed tragically by accident while ignoring 200,000 people killed for almost 4 years now in Syria.
No one is ignoring anyone. We're trying to point out the facts.
I am not done. I am not done. For every 30 seconds I speak, you speak for 3 minutes. I'd like to finish.
Each person has had equal opportunity to speak. Go ahead, sir.
No, they haven't. Syria is now a slaughterhouse because of Iran's sectarian policy of wreaking havoc in the whole region, which it doesn't even hide. From Yemen to Gaza to Lebanon to Syria. That is why the Turks now have been supporting, shamefully in my opinion, ISIS. They've been supporting them much less aggressively than Iran has been supporting Assad and Hezbollah. And that is the context in which this is happening. That is important. To always bring it back to Gaza, but to say that Iran is irrelevant is, again, insulting your audience and insulting my intelligence.
Okay, and 30 seconds, Ms. Kara Mustafa.
Providing you have any.
Ms. Kara Mustafa, go ahead.
I think this tedious distraction of constantly bringing back Iran when the subject of this debate was the issues in Turkey pretty much shows the bad faith of all Israelis and their shameful supporters who consider the gunning down of 4 children deliberately as something somewhat irrelevant. The tragedy in Syria, of course, is heartbreaking, but of course it was totally avoidable because it was first and foremost a very Syrian issue that could have been resolved among Syrians had foreign powers not actually meddled inside Syria. Now, Iran enjoys bilateral relations with the official government of Syria, and I think that's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. So did Russia continue to enjoy bilateral relations with the legitimate government of Syria, and I think that's, again, a perfectly legitimate thing to do. But there's quite a difference between the countries like Turkey, Qatar, or indeed Britain and France supporting and aiding jihadis traveling to Syria in a bid to overthrow
and
the
on that note, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we are out of time. So sorry. Ms. Hafsa Kara Mustafa, journalist and political analyst out of London, and Mr. Philip Salim, journalist and political commentator out of Los Angeles. And we thank all of you viewers for being with us on another debate. Make sure you join us same time, same place tomorrow. I'm Marcia Hashimi signing out for myself and all the crew right here in Tehran. Goodbye.